Okay,
Done.
starting now. Welcome, folks and friends. In this episode, we are going to talk about hormones, particularly as it pertains to women's health. We are going to answer a few questions. We're going to talk about our own personal experience with hormone health and our own challenges or changes, but please, disclaimer, this is not medical advice. This is conversation, opinion, and personal insight and experience. We are not medical professionals. It is not intended to be a tool for self-diagnosis or a substitute for medical advice. Always listen to the advice of your primary care physician, clinician, or integrative health practitioner.
So hormones. The title of this podcast is Hormone Hell or Hormone Health. And hormones tend to be lumped into this like broad, mysterious catch-all word that gets the blame for bad moods, bodily functions, and bitchiness. But I think it's common for us to generalize our thinking when we talk about hormones and to automatically assume that the word hormones specifically relates to lady hormones like progesterone and estrogen. And we'll get there, but those are actually just 2 out of over 50 hormones that have been identified in the human body. Wikipedia, in my research for this episode, lists 74, and I have seen somewhere in the last several months where somebody was talking about up to 200 hormones that have been identified. Now, I don't have a definitive list on that, but there's a lot. It's not just progesterone and estrogen. Hormones play crucial roles in regulating a wide variety of physiological processes, including your metabolism, growth, reproduction, mood, and stress responses. The exact number can vary depending on how researchers define and classify hormones. Okay, whoa. Spit it out, Kim. As some molecules may have hormone-like functions, without being formally categorized as hormones. Hormones include the well-known ones like cortisol and melatonin and testosterone, and also include the ones we may not realize are hormones like insulin, adrenaline, and vitamin D, which was originally mislabeled as a vitamin, and its hormone name is calcitriol. So that's the baseline intro to this podcast.
Let's start with hormones in men versus women. And the types of hormones are largely the same in men and women, but their levels and roles, they differ significantly, especially in the context of our own differences between our reproductive systems. We have shared hormones. Both men and women produce hormones together, such as insulin, cortisol, thyroid hormones, growth hormone, and adrenaline. And we share the same sex hormones, even though the levels and primary functions differ between the two. So here's all your sciencey stuff. Example, estrogen, higher in women, essential for reproductive health and secondary sexual characteristics. You've got progesterone, which is predominantly active in women, regulating your menstrual cycles and supporting pregnancy. And you've got testosterone, which is obviously higher in men, as you have probably heard, crucial for muscle mass, bone density, and male secondary sexual characteristics. Women produce similar amounts, which it still influences your libido and your muscle mass. And then there are the reproductive, the specific reproductive hormones like follicle stimulating hormone or FSH. You got luteinizing hormone, LH, which regulates menstrual cycles and ovulation, and HCG in pregnancy, which helps thicken a uterine lining to support a growing baby and embryo. And it tells the body, hey, time to stop your period. And then you got androgens like testosterone, which they're dominant with FSH and LH regulating your sperm production.
So here's what people fail to understand about hormone balance. And that is that there is a hierarchy that supports optimal hormone balance. So when we talk about or hear people say hormone balancing, one of the things I've seen a lot on Instagram is eat raw unpeeled carrots, and that's a hormone balancer. But actually the truth of the matter is that your hormones can't necessarily be optimized one at a time. It is a cascade of hormones that starts in the brain and then trickles down through the body. We believe the focus or blame should be on one hormone, like our estrogen is the problem, or we zero in on insulin, or it's our cortisol that's the problem. But just like getting a big pus filled zit, right? Which is practically impossible to fix or cover up with makeup, balancing or helping your sex hormones, example, estrogen, progesterone, etc., is practically impossible without obeying the hierarchy. So you can't just apply cover up, example, HRT or black cohosh, and believe your problem is fixed or gone. It's a tool in the toolkit. And yes, there's value, but it's probably not going to cover up the zit. Now, gross comparison, but you get the picture. So the hormone hierarchy looks like this. The hypothalamus in the brain, it's the master regulator. It is the endocrine system's command center. Your endocrine system is your hormone system, right? It's very sensitive to internal signals like stress, blood sugar, and light, which is classified under circadian rhythm, circadian health, as well as external factors like diet, sleep, and environment. After that, you've got the pituitary or master gland, and its job is to regulate adrenal and thyroid function, as well as FSH and LH, which is responsible for ovulation. Its job is dispatch. It is responsible for proper signaling, telling what hormones to do what, to reach all the major hormone producing glands. Then comes your adrenal system, the stress center. Cortisol regulates stress, metabolism, inflammation. Aldosterone balances sodium and potassium for hydration and blood pressure. DHEA is a precursor to sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen. Like chronic stress will fuck up the adrenals, causing dysregulation of cortisol and the downstream hormones like your thyroid, which is your metabolism manager. When the thyroid goes offline, it affects your body weight, temperature, hair growth, hair loss, and more. Next in the hierarchy is your pancreas, which is blood sugar regulation. And you've heard us talk about insulin, which regulates fat and nutrient storage, and glucagon, which frees up energy to burn. But just like backwashing into your water bottle, chronic blood sugar imbalances go back upstream. Chronically high blood sugar affects your cortisol and your thyroid and trickles down to your sex hormones. So, which is actually sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, those are at the very bottom of the hierarchy, meaning before life gets to fucking up your estrogen and progesterone in a very natural lifespan sort of way, your brain, your thyroid, your adrenals, and pancreas all have a hand in how you show up to perimenopause or menopause.
And now, we feel like we're a broken record to a degree.
Yeah, totally.
Like, it's not just the right amount of calories. It's not just the right macronutrient breakdown. It's not just going to be how much exercise you do, how much you're murdering yourself on the floor. That creates a strong and vibrant body. It's all of it that creates your results. And it's not just estrogen or just progesterone that is responsible for vitality and hormone balance. It's good sleep. It's stress management, it's good food, it's many parts working together in this amazing symphony to create the outcome that we have. This is always what we are preaching. It's your lifestyle, it's ongoing. We keep trying, we keep striving, we use all the tools, we don't overlook health, and we don't say fuck it on the basic tenets that create the foundation to support what we want. So we have some questions here that were submitted to us from our clients, our members that we coach and we work with on a personal basis. And we are going to do our best to answer them with our coach hats on. And reminder, this is not medical advice. This is opinion and a conversation. And we encourage you to only make decisions for your health with your most trusted physician or health professional's advice and their support in mind.
So, first question, which was beautifully and thoughtfully crafted, by the way. After having my first baby, the doctor put me on progesterone-only birth control. This means that I don't get a period every month. There was a short period of time before being pregnant and with my second baby that I was off the progesterone birth control and went through 2 menstrual cycles. The cramps were awful because of my C-section scar. Now, after having my second baby, I'm back on the same birth control. My son is now 17 months old, and I've been considering going back on regular birth control. The end goal is not to be on birth control altogether only until my husband gets the SNP. I will stay on birth control. Sorry, I kind of screwed that language up. But essentially, she's going to stay on the birth control until husband gets a vasectomy, and then she intends to go off. My problem is that I quite enjoy not having to worry about Aunt Flo once a month and all the joys that it brings. I'm kind of in the natural zone right now when it comes to hormones, and I fear what it will be like to having to ride the emotional waves every month again. However, I believe it's not natural for the body to not cleanse itself monthly, and I worry there will be future hormonal issues from staying on progesterone for so long. These are questions I will bring up with my doctor, but here are my questions for you ladies. I once heard that eating raw carrots for a few days before your periods helps lessen PMS symptoms. Is there anything you do throughout the month that helps you get through the highs and lows of hormonal changes? Second question, how do you stay on track with your nutrition when it's that time of month and not binge and eat comfort food and chocolate? And the last question is, do you change the way you work out to match the phases of your cycle? I'm throwing this question out to Joe to respond one question at a time. So first question, Joe, is there anything that you do throughout the month that helps you get through the highs and lows of hormones?
Yeah, for sure. I love this because, like, first off, on a background check here so you can understand history, I have been tracking my period fairly regularly over the last 2 years, and not just to track like when am I going to get my period, but actually my signs, my symptoms, all the catalysts like the cascade effects for mismanaged moods and behaviors. That, and to try to match my phases of my cycle with some nourishing foods to see if I can eliminate any of those period-like symptoms. And truthfully, once you get a better grasp on what is happening in each of your phases that you go through, then you can essentially plan for it. And let's just talk about the period for a second, because I don't think a lot of women, Kim and I were just discussing this before we started this podcast, I don't think a lot of women actually know like what happens in their period and what cycles they have and what that looks like, what the phases look like. So you have 4 cycle phases within your 21 or your 28-day cycle. Personally, I go through a 21-day. Kim, when she was more regular, was a little bit longer. Then we kind of synced up and matched in the middle. We were working together.
And for years, like for mostly my whole life, like I was very regular, 28 days, really uneventful, normal periods. So, you know, like that's, yeah.
So the first phase is your menstrual phase, aka this is when you're going to have your period, which lasts around 3 to 7 days. This is when both estrogen and progesterone are at their lowest, and because of that, your energy feels pretty low as a result. You feel tired, like you just might need more rest, etc. The second phase is your follicular phase, and that lasts about 7 to 10 days, and this phase begins with your period and continues afterwards. Estrogen starts to rise, you're boosting your energy levels, your mood, your mental clarity, etc. And then your third phase is your ovulation. It only lasts around 1 to 3 days in its release of the luteinizing hormone, which stimulates the follicle to release an egg. Uterine lining begins to thicken, your estrogen begins to rise, and it peaks here. Plus, testosterone gives you more energy, confidence boost, and the libido that most women really want some days, right? And the last phase is your luteal phase, which lasts around 12 to 14 days. Really, this phase is split into 2 parts, like the week just after ovulation and which is the following week, and then the 1 week just prior to when you get your period. Estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, they rise to their highest and then they drop the week before your period. So basically in the first half, you're going to feel really good, but as progesterone peaks, you may notice lower energy, mood swings, and PMS symptoms like bloating and cravings before you start that cycle all over again.
So I just want to interject here because I think that this is really undervalued information. I think that we have spent the last, for a long, long time, 50 years probably, since the development of birth control for women, right? Oral birth control for women. We forget that the reason that women have a period is not to have a period. The reason that you have a period is to procreate, is to repopulate the world, to you know, it's survival of the fittest. It's making babies. And so when you look at the natural signals behind those rises and falls naturally in your cycle, it would make perfect sense that during that follicular phase heading up towards ovulation, the whole point is to drive your behavior, your moods, your energy in order to make you more flirtatious and make you want to have sex and make you want to fool around. You're more, you know, interested in the opposite sex. You want to, like, that's driving you towards having sex because you're getting ready to ovulate, right? And then after that, if you don't actually catch your pregnancy, you make it sound like a disease. It's not, you know, like if you don't actually catch, you know, have a fertilized egg and become pregnant, then the whole point is to switch the hormones off and have a period, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but that week before your period, part of the reason that you're being driven with extra hunger and cravings for chocolate, it's always about how to prepare the body to grow a baby.
Yeah, exactly. So back to your question, which is how do I balance it all? My main priority is sleep. When my kids go to bed at 8, I'm already climbing to bed shortly after that. I've said that in previous podcasts. Like, I need to sleep. Sleep helps keep my emotions steady by helping my brain handle all the stress and deal with challenges as they come on the fly. When you're well rested, your body can produce and regulate hormones more effectively. For example, during sleep, your body maintains the balance of reproductive hormones like estrogen and progesterone. So we're tracking cycle and we're getting enough sleep, but we also have another thing that I believe is so effing important and probably the most overlooked aspect of women and their period health is that you have to talk with someone about it. You have to share and you have to, what is your experience? What is your experience? I think that is so overlooked. Like, I'm dead serious. One of the best things about the people I surround myself with is that we can, with full transparency, talk about what we are going through and experiencing all together in real time. If I'm having a rough menstrual week around here, like Kim knows, we can share, support, help each other out in the process. Like, for heaven's sakes, I truly didn't even know my own body until after I had kids. I didn't pay attention to it, but now that I'm tracking it, I understand it, and I realize, like, hey, I'm not fucking crazy. I'm not going crazy every month. My mood can literally be tracked to the day because of my hormone swings during my cycle, and women haven't been raised to discuss this at all. Or, you know, like, I felt I didn't know enough about it growing up. It was always shushed and put under the rug. Even conversations with my own mom, like, I couldn't even talk to my own mom about periods, it felt like. But dang, here, I'm like walking around the gym, all the staff hollering, yeah, it's ovulation day. I'm about to light a fucking rocket under my ass and coach this next class. Like, let's go. Like, we talk about it and we share it.
Well, and so Joe said, you know, as kids, as young women entering into, you know, starting your period, like, I would have been 13 years old, and my mom, I consider my mom to be really progressive, and, you know, she was open and honest, and I still, like, literally all the information I got about my period was handed to me in a pamphlet.
Yeah, we both had this.
From like Kotex, it came in the pad box, and I came out through the years where, like, they were like the belts with, like, the garter, like, hold the pad, you know, like,
written by a man.
Yeah, maybe, probably. So yeah, we've come a long way, and it is important to have somebody to talk about it with, because it is just so affirming to go, oh, I'm not the only one. So how do you stay on track with your nutrition when it's that time of month and not binge and eat comfort food and chocolate?
Well, this is where I feel it is important to understand that different hormones respond to different foods. Like, sugary processed foods can upset your insulin, and too much caffeine can raise your cortisol, which is going to mess with melatonin, and that's going to ultimately affect your sleep. So during your cycle, estrogen does better with less sugar and more time, more space between meals, while progesterone needs more rest and healthy carbs like whole grains. Small changes like this can actually improve your mood, energy, appetite, and PMS symptoms. So if we go back to phases, each phase should be treated differently with nutrition. And I definitely have been trying to match that as best as I can, especially as I was leading up my training to Strong First, for sure. So when your period starts, like your menstrual phase, that's day 1 of your cycle, I start with iron-rich foods. Something like beets, adding complex carbs like brown rice, sweet potato for blood sugar stability. And I combine that with high protein and fats. Like, hearty food here is best. During your period, focus on foods that boost your magnesium and iron levels, such as dark green leafy vegetables, nuts, seeds, bananas, and even biting on, nibbling on some dark chocolate. But I also drink my water like crazy during my period week. I notice that has helped me a lot. Follicular phase, it's a time to have lighter meals with colorful veggies, salads, lean protein, like really truly less heavy as you're coming out of your period. Your period is almost done and you're just out, so lighten up. Avoid or limit any of the fatty foods, alcohol, caffeine, salty foods, to cut out the bloating and all the puffiness that your period may have given you. Try to incorporate foods that will metabolize all of your extra estrogen. Focus on sprouted and fermented foods like broccoli sprouts, kimchi, sauerkraut, citrus fruits, lentils, eggs. Like, I eat more eggs for sure during this time. I feel like I crave them. Then when you're in ovulation, where you literally feel like you're on top of the world and it's feeling good, light, not too heavy during this time, you feel like your stomach's coming in a bit, like tons of protein. Get your veggies to flush out more estrogen, cruciferous veggies. And that's all gonna help me to continue feeling like a badass motherfucker. Smaller amounts of carbs, they're really truly needed there, not too much. You're feeling incredible and you don't need no big rushes of glucose in your body.
I think right here, like, this is a really important thing where we're talking about like all the healthy foods, and this is so important to, you know, back this up and kind of write some of these down and just check in on your diet and track and all these kinds of things. I also think that as we talk about this, one of the probably most missed aspects to this conversation is the development of PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, in women over the last, for sure, 20 years, and how that has exploded, and the link to insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we're talking about all these cycles and phases, if you are dealing with PCOS, either undiagnosed or clinically diagnosed by your practitioner, that is also going to create extra struggle for you. And so these changes might seem overwhelming, but this is where the gold is. Like, nutrition is 100% where the gold is.
Because PCOS is, like we mentioned before, it's diabetes of the ovaries.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, for sure.
So lastly, your last phase, the luteal phase, it's a time before your period comes. You're going to benefit from eating healthily, steering clear of foods that can trigger more period cramps. So this is the best time to avoid caffeine, alcohol, any more salt that's going to cause more puffiness, carbonated drinks, more bloat. You want to have, you know, more calories, warm foods like soups, stews, healthy casseroles, root vegetables, foods high in magnesium like avocado, dark chocolate. I do more avocado than I would do dark chocolate though. And like, how much of this do I really pay attention to? Sometimes it's 60-40, maybe 80-20. Sometimes I'm fucking nailing it. And other times I'm letting the cravings get the better of me. But I will say this, when I eat too much crap and sugar leading into my period and during it, my PMS symptoms, they are off the fucking charts. And when I pay attention and I'm more intentional and self-aware of what I'm putting in my body leading up to the week, I don't even notice when my period comes, not 1 ounce of symptoms. So yes, nutrition is important.
Yeah. And I think it can't be understated either that we often say this about many things is that if you have never considered this or never put any effort toward this, and you are 28 or 32 or 38 years old or 42 years old, and you are just embarking on this journey, you got to check your expectations, because it is completely unreasonable to think that you're going to change your diet for 3 weeks and notice a significant difference. Like, you gotta just start easing in. You just got to take the information and start to kind of gently transition yourself into this direction.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you change the way that you work out to match the phases of your cycles?
Short answer, fuck yes, I do. This reminds me, like, this question reminds me of how dialed I was into my training for SFG2 last year in New York City, and how I almost jumped through the roof, or I think I jumped into Kim's office when I found out the night we were going to be doing our testing, as I was tracking, was going to be my second day after my cycle ended. And like, why was I so excited? Because I knew I was going to be at my strongest in my entire month on that one fucking single day to do my testing. And like, yeah, like, I think it's important. You need to train to match the phases of your cycle. Your cycle has a huge impact on your energy, strength, and endurance. Menstrual phase, you move slower, you lift weights. I took it back, and like, I might take it back a notch and might just go for a walk or do some light stretching. I had a certification in the past in Toronto when I was on day 2, and I know you had a certification on one of your parents, and it felt like I got hit by a fucking truck after that training day. Like, I could barely lift the weight. So no, I am older and wiser now, so that means I'm going to train accordingly. energy starts to rise again in your follicular and truly peaks in ovulation. So follicular, your energy is back. So sweat it out with cardio, full body strength exercises, or whatever feels good. Ovulation would be great to fall strategically on a conditioning day, like something you're going to really go crazy nuts on, because, you know, I'm sure most people could go forever on that day. But luteal, the first week would be treated as normal training week for myself. But as I move towards the week before my period and over my period, I'm more mindful about lifts and not being so heavy and not overdoing it. So yeah, knowing how your hormones change helps you train more effectively, perform better, and it's going to help you avoid burnout.
So I can remember during my periods that very, very typically when I got to really know my cycle, the week before my period for me, because I think we're also, there are some signs and symptoms that would be, you know, generic. And then this is why it's important to track, is because you're going to find your own way through it by noticing yourself. And so the week leading up to my period, I would be gassed. I would be like, everything felt heavy and hard. I would have more cravings. I would be more interested in hunger. I wouldn't be able to have as much like endurance, good quality endurance, or even lift as much weight. And then for me, even though this is suggesting that your energy isn't as good in my period, during the week of your period, for me, the day that my period started, my training became like badass, and my cravings were gone. Like that would be the time where I would be really dialed in my nutrition, and my training would be really powerful. And so this is why you have to track and know yourself, because there may be subtle differences between what the conventional statistical kind of encouragements are and what works for you. The other thing is that I can remember when I first started reading perimenopause research, they were talking about how during a normal month of hormone fluctuations, there is a time to do more power-based training, like explosion, like ballistic kind of training, and a couple weeks where it's more important to do heavy strength training, and then a week in there where, due to hormone decline, you should not be doing any kinds of jumping. Your tendons and ligaments tend to be more susceptible to injury. So it's also, this is why it's so important to get educated. And we know more now than we've ever known before, but you got to take that information and then apply it through the lens of looking at yourself.
Yeah. So we have another question, and Kim's going to lead off with this one. I'm going to throw this at Kim. So tell me about hormone replacement therapy, or HRT. Why and when and how, and is it good or is it bad? I want you just to dump and tell the listeners all that you've learned.
Okay, so I'm going through it. Like, I'm not an expert. I'm not a doctor. This is what I found out for myself. I'll share it kind of through my own lens. And then again, you know, we've got to begin to find our own way through it. We got to find our own clinicians. We got to be able to talk to our doctor. And if we can't talk to our doctor, we've got to demand that we are referred out somewhere else, or that we are willing to even pay privately. Like I'm willing to pay privately. And I'm really lucky that financially I'm in a good place with the support of my husband and the decisions and my value system. Like I just am willing to spend that money that way versus a different way, you know? So like, thank God that there's been this amazing uptick in the talk around hormones and HRT and perimenopause and menopause. There are a couple of really excellent clinics locally in Red Deer, as well as Edmonton, Calgary, with exceptional doctors and clinicians who specialize in women's health. So the first step, if you're struggling, is to ask for a referral to one of these clinics or physicians. And second, again, remember, like, I'm just talking about my own perspective based on my own life experience and beliefs. So, and what I've developed as an opinion. So some of you are going to think I'm too granola, or I'm living in the dark ages, and I'm okay with that. So it's amazing to have pharmaceutical interventions that have given women the opportunity to optimize their health and take control of their reproductive health. But these opportunities and upticks also have a pendulum effect, I think. Like sometimes it swings back around and kicks us in the ass. And so perimenopause, menopause, and HRT are huge topics right now, especially on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Not to mention podcasts. Like HRT is really being advocated for as a solution to improving women's health and well-being, and it's amazing. But we've also done this before in the history of female health, and the best example I can see of it right now for comparison is oral contraception. Like, oral contraception is one of those amazing medical interventions that has allowed women everywhere to take control of their reproductive cycles and prevent pregnancy, and also to control painful cramps and out of control periods, or regulate periods, or clear up acne and skin problems. Like, all the ways to eliminate, all the way to eliminating your period altogether. So there are women who are using oral contraception to avoid getting pregnant, and there are women who are using oral contraception to avoid the inconvenience of having a period. Now, I'm gonna sound judgmental here, and there's likely no way around it without pissing people off, but medicine is always awesome until it's not. And while not having a period is pretty sweet, because bleeding every month can suck and it's super inconvenient, but it's also now well documented that women coming off the use of long-term oral contraceptive can struggle with everything from post-pill amenorrhea, which is no bleeding, to challenges with coming back to regular ovulation, which in turn affects fertility. They've got dysregulated HPA axis, which affects thyroid, mood swings, acne, irregular periods, all the way to hirsutism, which is the excessive growth of hair on the face, arms, chin, around your nipples, everything, including weight gain. And that long-term oral contraceptive use is correlated with natural hormone maturation, cardiovascular health, bone loss, thyroid dysfunction, and nutrient deficiencies. Like, yes, it's been a positive, and there's that pendulum effect. And I wonder if HRT is kind of going to be the same. Like, studies came out in the Women's Health Initiative in 2002 that linked HRT to breast cancer and some other detrimental outcomes. And for years, women were steered away from it because of those studies. And so recently, HRT has come back into the picture as helpful and health building and useful to mitigate some of the really challenging symptoms that women have during perimenopause and menopause, like debilitating hot flashes and rage, anger, emotional disruption, as well as depression and anxiety, weight gain, etc. But we also just want a pill fix for our pain. Like, my belly fat is up, and I don't want to acknowledge that alcohol makes my hot flashes worse and drives my belly fat up higher. And I probably should take a good, honest look at my lifestyle. But on second thought, isn't there just a pill I can take to stop all this bullshit? And I'm allowed to say this because at 54, I've bled every month, except during pregnancies, for 41 years. And I've been perimenopausal, and I'm currently working my way into menopause. I've seen a doctor who specializes in menopause, and I'm currently I'm not having hot flashes, I call them warming trends, and hormonal,
warming trends.
Yeah, I'm not having straight up hot flashes. I'm not like,
I'm just getting warm.
I know women who wake up in a, like, they call it a cold sweat because it starts out that they're drenched and then they get chills, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not having that, but I am having hormonal weight fluctuations. I've had the hair loss and hair breakage. I've got the moods that are like surprising to me. And yet I still don't think I need HRT yet. Like, I'm not scared of it. I just feel like I'm doing okay right now. And maybe if I didn't feel like I was okay right now, I'd dive deeper into the options. Maybe if I was 44 and suffering, because I've had friends who suffered through perimenopause and hemorrhagic, flooding, gushing, 38-day long periods, like, I would too dive deeper into the options, right? But again, I can't help but wonder if, just like oral contraceptive use, like, what are the long-term outcomes? And maybe they're all positive, because there are people out there that are selling all the positives. But you can find people who want to sell you all the positives on all the pharmaceuticals, Ozempic included, right? Like, we want it to be a miracle pill. I'm suffering, hand it over, I'm over it. I don't care what the outcomes are. So again, I could be just being uneducated and short-sighted and distrustful, and maybe I should say yes, like, give me what I can take. But the way I understand it anyways is HRT is truly only a viable option for a 5-year window after menopause ends, the 1 year following your last menstrual cycle. So for example, I've just entered into missing periods, skipping periods. And so there's this menopause is classified as the 1 year period where you're no longer having a period at all. It's that 1 year of no periods. That's when you've entered menopause or are through menopause, not through menopause, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So you get that 1 year grace, and then 5 years after that. That would take me, I'm 54, that would take me to the age of 60 anyhow, right? And so if you're 44 and you want to get to 50, and that can be helpful for sure. But for me, like, I think that's also part of it is like, we're going through this anyhow, like I'm not suffering. I don't consider myself suffering. I'm challenged. I'm struggling a bit in certain ways, but for me, I'm just not, I just would rather put some attention and energy on other things, And again, my final word on this is consult with a pro. Get your labs done. Actually take a look at your hormones. Dive deep. Track all of your symptoms. Don't just track shit when you're having a period and life is flying high or because you want to get pregnant and have a baby. Define your struggle. Document it and then take it in to your clinician or primary care physician. And de-stress. And eat real food and work hard on your circadian rhythm. Ease up on alcohol or quit drinking altogether. Build some muscle, fix your sleep, get therapy, lean on your friends. Like, do everything instead of wanting to stay the same and change nothing and take a pill to end the pain.
So I've heard that one of the primary perimenopause symptoms is chronic pain, it's achy joints, and it's that soft tissue injuries. Why is this? Any tips on that?
So, I think that what I've read and what I understand is that it's directly related to estrogen decline and collagen loss and muscle loss and increased inflammation. So estrogen is so protective to the body that as it declines, we become more aware of our aches and susceptible to injury. Add in a natural loss of collagen production, which adds to the problem of fragility and clunkiness in the joints and tissues, and a loss of healthy muscle mass, which for a lot of women, we just aren't strong enough. We just have not been strong enough, have not challenged our muscles enough to grow muscle tissue because it's so protective that this is the recipe for chronic pain and soft tissue injuries and the achiness. And then on top of that, if you add an extra 25 to 50 pounds, depending on our age average body weight, as we enter menopause, we've just got too much body fat, too much body weight on those joints and tissues, not to mention the fact that being overweight itself creates a higher level of inflammation in the body. And body fat is inflammatory, and being overweight is dangerous. Being overweight and under muscled is dangerous. And so again, I think we want a quick fix to this, and it's a complex problem that should actually start earlier in our life. We won't, because humans are like this, but we should be thinking about how to prevent a suffering in perimenopause and menopause when we're in our 20s and 30s. We should be training, eating, and living in a way that prevents it when we hit 40, 50 plus, but we won't do that. And that doesn't do anything to serve the women who are already there, between 40 and 60 now, right? Mm-hmm. But it's good to understand why it's happening and what we can do about it now.
What do we do about it now?
Okay. Broken record. Again, we eat meat and we lift heavy shit every damn day, and we focus on sleep and recovery, and we work on losing visceral fat, and we should be walking 7,000 to 10,000 steps as many days in the week as possible, and focusing on circadian health. We should be making some bone broth, and I'm talking about that gelatinous, collagenous, broth that shakes like Jello when it's cold, and drinking it or eating it in hot mugs and bowls of soup. And I don't for a second believe that there's a quick fix for this. That's the answer. We have to just make it the lifestyle, right? Because quitting and relying on HRT isn't going to take us very far. Yes, it's helpful right now. It's good for minimizing suffering right now, but I'm headed for old age. There's no two ways about it. I'm gonna hurt. I'm gonna fall apart. I'm going to lose my youth. And so it's important to remember that I still can be vital and build muscle and stay bendy and embrace my power and beauty as I age by taking care of myself in all those ways, including possibly HRT. And I'm just not there yet. In 6 months, I might be, But just look at Joan, Train with Joan on Instagram. She's 75 years old.
She's fucking awesome.
And she's proof that you can do it at any age. You just got to get to it. Mm-hmm. So, moving on. Okay, we had one of our male members send us a question on the decline of testosterone as we age and asked if we could speak to males, in our listeners. And I thought maybe you could take that one, Joe.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to. Let's break it down. It's the hormone that's going to make your brain feel sharp, your body as males feel really, really strong. And truthfully, it's when you feel a little bit like Superman. Testosterone decline, it's a natural part of aging for men. Usually around the age of about 30, men start to lose about 1% of their testosterone bank a year. So a surefire way that you can speed that up, that process, is to remain inactive, to get poor sleep, to eat like crap, and keep your stress levels at a maximum level. That's going to just speed that process right up. So it's really simple. You have to do the opposite of that in order to maintain healthy, balanced levels of testosterone. Sleep, again, should just be straight up non-negotiable. Remember when you used to be able to sleep until noon and wake up feeling like $1,000,000? You don't need that long. Probably just a healthy number between 7 to 9 hours a night. Poor sleep, like we said, is a surefire way to tank your testosterone levels. And you got to pick up something heavy. Put it back down, pick it back up again, put it back down, do it over for as much as you need to, because resistance training is going to be testosterone's best friend. When you lift weights, your body responds by boosting testosterone to help repair and grow your muscles. It also builds lean muscle, which naturally is going to support higher testosterone levels and burn excess fat, especially around your belly, which can otherwise, big visceral circumference is going to lower your testosterone as it is. So plus, it's going to trigger other helpful hormones like the human growth hormone and improve insulin sensitivity, reducing your inflammation, and it's going to help keep your hormones balanced. But really, as we said, your hormones can't be balanced. It's just basically, are they firing when they're supposed to be firing? Mm-hmm. That's basically what it is. And lastly, if you're high stressed, cortisol will lower your testosterone levels. And if you're carrying extra weight around the midsection in a waist, inches, that can also mess with your testosterone levels. So your testosterone isn't just about aging. It's truly about how you live that's going to matter. You got to take control of that and let your hormones work for you. I almost missed one too. The next one is that you got to eat like a grown-up. You got to eat like a grown-up. I say that with so much peace and love. Protein, healthy fats, veggies, they should be your new best friends. And even incorporating vitamins like zinc, vitamin D, they're key players in boosting your testosterone.
And I think it's important to say too, I'm a huge advocate for actual sunshine vitamin D. Safe sun exposure we evolved to capture the sun. That is how your hormones work. It comes in through your eyes. It's hitting all those centers in your brain. And so it's really important, although we're cautioned to cover ourselves up, I honestly think that is a driver that's under circadian health, and that's a driver of hormone imbalance. One of the best resources that I follow on Instagram, who does consistently excellent work educating men about low T, is Dr. Rob Kamanariak. And we'll include Train with Joan and Dr. Rob's Instagram handles in our show notes, so that you can go follow your own experts. But what about women with low T?
Well, for women, testosterone, it might not get as much attention as estrogen, but it is just as important. Women naturally have much lower testosterone levels than men, but we still need it. Testosterone helps women build, it helps them keep muscle. They got to stay energized with it, and it maintains that healthy libido. You want to have sex. It also supports strong bones, just in case you don't know what libido means. It means you want to get frisky. It also supports strong bones, good moods, you know what I'm saying? So when levels are low, women may feel tired. They may struggle to gain strength. They may lose motivation or hit a plateau in their fitness and have stalled weight loss. Lifting weights should be able to help women out, but if you're someone like Kim,
Yeah.
who has undetectable testosterone.
Literally, my labs came back when I did my hormone panel, undetectable testosterone, which explains the problem with low libido.
Yeah.
Like, because here's the thing: is that my husband is hot. Like, that's and
he's a smoke show.
And I could give a shit.
Yeah,
Really,
you
truly.
can give a shit.
And here's the thing. I always joke now. I say, like, having sex is like going to the gym. I never fucking want to go to the gym. Ever. But I never regret getting in a workout.
So true. So if you're like someone like Kim, I'd urge you to go get your labs done so you can truly see via
too much information.
like just a process of elimination. If that is something you might have flagged due to these symptoms that we've listed and talked about, because unaddressed, you might feel low about your journey, because Kim was feeling low about her journey. She was talking about nothing's working and stuff like that's the feeling of it, is low testosterone. And it's just simply one of those symptoms.
Yeah. It's probably safe to say that the best place to start in optimizing hormone health is using the hierarchy, like working the top down. Circadian health. You got to get up with the sun. You got to see daylight with bare eyeballs. Get adequate sunshine. Walk. Get your blood flowing. It helps, so much. Like this, like sunshine, daylight, sunset, it helps set your hypothalamus and pituitary, right?
Mm-hmm. You got to fix your sleep, 7 to 9 hours a night, and get your chronic stress dealt with.
Yeah.
Add some sauna, meditation, therapy, relaxation, massage. I just told the client this morning, when's the last time you had a massage? Like, get some naps in. I'm going to go for a nap after this because I opened the gym. I was up at 4 a.m. And also, like, you got to ask for help.
Yeah, true. I'm laughing because you opened the gym at 4:15. I brought Joe a vanilla latte, which is an espresso shot, of course, before the podcast. And I'm like, holy shit, she's reading fast.
I'm a fast reader.
Fast talking babe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to focus on high quality whole food nutrition. Eat breakfast within 30 to 60 minutes of waking to dampen the effects of high cortisol. Like, people underestimate this one, especially my women clients who get up and are like, oh, I just can't eat anything. I don't feel like eating. I feel nauseous when I think about food. Like, babe, you are it. That's the problem. That's one of the problems. Mm-hmm. And this is where mechanical eating comes in. Sometimes you just got to force yourself and consistently force yourself to get that breakfast in. I keep telling clients now, like, I don't care if you want to weed out one meal of the day, but don't make it breakfast, right? Mm-hmm. And you got to aim for your protein goal of 35 to 40 grams per meal for women, minimum. I just heard a podcast with Dr. Stacy Sim on Gabby Reese. I talked about it in the last episode we did, where they were talking about during your reproductive years, women who are training regularly need 35 grams of protein at breakfast, and women who are perimenopausal and menopausal need 40 plus. So, you think you're going to be able to get away with less, which naturally happens as you age. You ain't. And you got to begin to work on regulating or balancing your blood sugar, avoiding highs and lows, avoiding restriction and binging, like 3 square meals a day, no snacking, avoiding a diet high in processed food or too low of protein, or any extreme diet for that matter. That's why whole foods, fruits and vegetables and meats and avocado and butter, and like, don't overthink it. Just eat real food.
Yeah, build muscle, exercise, walk.
Yeah. And then get a referral to a clinic or a doctor or a lab that specializes in understanding your blood work and women's hormones. There's nothing more frustrating than going to a physician and having them dismiss you and saying, oh, no, you're too young for that. Or no, everything's fine. Your blood looks normal. Like, it's so depressing and frustrating. Or a men's specialist. Like, if you have a man who needs help, you need to encourage them to do the same thing, right?
Yeah, advocate for yourself. And again, it seems that the message is one that we talk about consistently. Do all the things that create the sturdiest version of you, which is what we say here at Iron Lab: eat, sleep, train, and live. And if you're really struggling, don't follow the herd. Advocate for your own health. You got to secure the help of a professional.
Ask friends for resources and recommendations. Ask your doctor for the referral. Get personalized help. Get personalized feedback and support.
Yeah, and continue to ask questions, search for answers, and get educated.
That's part of taking your power back, right? Education and help is out there now. You can look for it and find it just about anywhere. So let's go.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss another episode. Later, alligator.
Ciao.